Sam Taylor? Sam Taylor grew up in Arizona's desert and now lives among Connecticut's trees. When she's not writing, Sam spends her time being mom to the world's cutest boys, one of whom we caught a little glimpse of earlier, whirling through dance workouts, and baking too many cakes. She does not possess fire magic, so she says, but does have one fire-colored cat. We Are the Fire is her debut novel. Sam, over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm so thrilled to be here today. I am going to be reading an excerpt from the second chapter of this book. At this point in the story, the main characters, Oksana and Prawn, have returned from their first mission that opened the book, and Prawn, who struggles from chronic pain due to the transformations that gave them the power over fire, is suffering a lot, and Oksana and her best friend Anu are trying to get him some help. "This is no place to sleep, Prawn," Anu chided. "Come along, there's a slightly better bed for you in the hospital." Anu took one of his arms, Oksana the other, and together they heaved him to his feet, then staggered toward the red-turreted healing hall. As they waddled, Prawn's legs spasmed, and he let out a keening cry. "Stay strong," Oksana squeezed his hand. When he squeezed back, the knot in her chest loosened the smallest bit, but that knot tightened right back up when they entered the hospital wing on the first floor. Not one physician stood in sight among the linen-covered cots. "We could use some help," Anu called toward the adjoining chamber, where physicians sometimes gathered for meetings. But that room was silent. No one answered her shout. "Should I look around?" Anu stumbled as Prawn slumped against her shoulder. "They can't be far." Oksana shook her head. "I don't need them. Get him on a cot." While Anu got Prawn settled, Oksana snatched a suture needle off a table and used it to pick the lock on one of the many steel cabinets lining the walls. The shelves within were crammed with bottles and jars, none labeled, all different sizes and shapes. She grabbed 3 and poured 2 spoonfuls from each into a bowl. Prawn would need a strong dose tonight. "Stir that well." She shoved the bowl toward Anu and turned to fetch a syringe. Someone stood in her way. Oksana smelled him before she saw him and choked. Rotten eggs, scorched metal. Rotare, the imperial alchemist. His round glasses caught the light until he looked like an insect with enormous gleaming eyes, and his high-collared white lab coat was stained with smears of red, black, and silver. The man's skin was ashen, even his blonde hair peppered through with gray, though his face wasn't wrinkled with age. He peered at the bottles on the table. "Where did you get those?" Acid bubbled in Oksana's throat. She stepped between Rotare and the bowl, drawing herself up as tall as she could. Still, she didn't reach his shoulder. None of the physicians were here to help. "I have a medicine token." She tossed it over. He snatched it in midair, though his hands trembled so badly it was a miracle he caught it at all. His brow furrowed as he stared at her. "None of those bottles are labeled. How did you figure out which to pick?" "I know some things about chemicals." Even as a young child, Oksana had already been experimenting, before being kidnapped for this army. Peering over Oksana's head, Rotare studied the bottles she'd selected, then snatched the bowl from Anu's hands and examined the mixture inside. A slow smile carved across his face. "Indeed, you do." When Oksana didn't grin back, Rotare turned to Prawn, looking him over as he might a rotted cabbage in the market. "Injured in that fight with the imps? There's a mess that will have heads rolling. At least my demon's tongue saved the day. With proper help, I could really change this country." He peered out the window, frowning toward the palace glowing in the distance. Oksana clenched her jaw, fighting to keep her temper in check. Rotare's wretched work was the reason Prawn was sick. "Nayar needs his medicine." The man unlocked another cabinet and selected a syringe. Oksana reached to take it, but Rotare clucked his tongue. Now, you've already crossed a line, poking through the cabinets. Don't make me report you to the commanders. I will administer the dose." Oksana didn't trust him with needles. She didn't trust him near Prawn. But another spasm tore through Prawn, and he thrashed on the cot, crying out. Rotare wagged the syringe like a scolding finger. "Don't you trust your own work?" Biting her tongue, Oksana watched Rotare fill the syringe from the bowl, then stick it into a vein in Prawn's arm. As the medicine poured into him, Prawn sighed, his breath evening into the steady rhythm of sleep. It worked. Rotare tossed the used syringe into a vat of pure ethanol. Disappointed? Oksana asked, but the rising light in the man's face spoke the truth. Not dismayed, delighted. The alchemist rounded on her, peering with an intensity that sent chills down her spine. What else do you know about chemicals? A warning knell echoed through Oksana's heart. Nothing of interest. Rotare's grin widened to a smirk. Care to change that? I could teach you a thing or two. I've even gotten demon's tongue to burn underwater. Tell me that's not more interesting than medicine for crippled toolies. Bastard. Oksana yearned to toss a beaker of scalding serum into his face. I have to get back outside, she said. Commander's orders. Beyond the windows, shouts erupted like firecrackers, commanders' voices calling for attention and order. With a scowl, Rotare stalked from the room. Oksana didn't follow, sinking instead onto the cot beside Prawn. She yearned to hold him, but didn't dare. Affection between toolies wasn't forbidden, but anyone who displayed dedication to something, especially someone, other than the army, invited trouble. So she settled for the smaller comforts of a mere comrade, pulling off his gauntlets and unbuckling his antlers and greaves. So we are the